I hope everyone is having a good morning. I'm looking forward to taking and sharing with you Mass Circle grant writing and just talking about the process so that we can start thinking about what it's like to take and find grants to take and financially support our circle. In thinking about taking and providing support for our circle, there's three main areas that we've seen that a lot of circles use in order to take and find support. One is that they charge participants. Two is that they might have their program fully funded by their particular institution. It might be that there's a center on campus that is looking for outreach support, things like that. Or number three, a lot of circles are submitting applications to government or private organizations to fund their circle. And this is what we're going to take and focus on today. We want to focus on what the process is like in order to take and find these funding sources and actually put in an application. So what we want to do in doing that, when I was first hearing about grant writing, it was something that I was very new to. So I want to make sure that we all have the same background to get started. And so what I want to first do is just introduce you to the key players that we want to think about when we're thinking about how the funding process, this particular funding process works. So there's going to be three main groups that we want to think about when we're trying to thinking about this type of funding support.
Like they can't see you or anything.
I'm sorry, I can hear somebody, not quite sure. Anybody have questions or? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and keep going. So when we're thinking about this type of funding support, there's three main parties that we want to think about that might be involved. And that is us as circle leaders, because we're the ones that are needing more money to support our circles. And as we're going through this example, I'm gonna color our contributions to the whole entire process in blue. There's the funders. These are the people that decide that they have money to give to support a specific goal. And then there's going to be your supporting institution. So this is the group in which your circle is going to live. This is going to be the group that's going to accept the money should you get funding. And this is the group that you need to look at that's going to take and have restrictions on where you may be able to apply for funding. They're also going to have resources to be able to take and support you. So if we look at those three key players, there's going to be a sort of timeline process that ends up pulling together in regards to how those three players end up interacting. And it looks a little bit overwhelming, but this is where hopefully the color coding is going to help. And I just want to walk us through this process because it helps us to understand this process as we're taking and putting together an application ourselves. So to get started, we have these funders over here in red on the left. And these funders decide that they have money that they want to give to support a specific goal. And once they just make that decision, they will design and post something called an RFP, a request for proposal. This is going to detail who and what they would like to fund. What are these funders' initiatives? What do they care about? How do they want to make a difference in the world? What are the things that they want to put more money into? And you are going to work with your supporting institution to find these RFPs, to find these requests for proposals that align with what they want to give money to and what you want to take and support through your circle program. So are you looking to take and support underserved youth? Are you looking to take and support talented youth? Are you looking to support teachers? What is the goals that you have for your particular program? And then finding funders out there that want to also support similar goals. Once you've found a funder, somebody that wants to give money to a goal that you share with your particular circle, you're going to take and check in with your supporting institution and make sure that they all agree that you're going to take and apply for the grant. You're going to prepare the application and the budget for the grant and give it over to your supporting institution. And together, you're going to submit an application to the funders. The funders will then review all of the accepted applications. A panel, a small set of these funders is going to take and decide out of all of the applications that they've accepted, who do they actually want to give money to? And then after that, you're going to take and find from your supporting institution, you and your supporting institution, who did the funders finally decide to fund? Are they going to give you money? And I want to give you this big picture of it because it really helps in thinking through the different parts. It helps us in thinking through our timelines. Because for some, if we were working and you're trying, if the funders over here on the left are going to be the National Science Foundation, or NSF, it's quite possible that you are going to see an RFP on their website that is looking to take and fund something that's 6 months, 1 year, 2 years away before you even submit the application. So it's likely if you're doing something for that far away, you're going to work for about 6 months as a team with your supporting institution to write the grant, and then you're going to have to wait about 3 to 6 months for a decision. So as you can see, that's taking a lot, that's at least 1 year out before you're going to have the money in the hands to be able to take and spend on your circle. That said, there's other organizations that might have a much shorter timeline. So the worst that I've ever been involved in is that we found out about a funder's request for proposal 1 week before the deadline, and we worked like crazy over that 1 week to submit a grant, and we found out about the acceptance 1 month later. That was a very, very fast turnaround, and that's very unlikely. But I bring it up because the reason that we were able to submit a grant as a team in 1 week is because we've been working and we've been putting together a lot of these funding proposals, so we were able to reuse existing content. And I would say that that's another thing to be aware of, that just the process of applying for grant can be really good for you as circle leaders as well as for your supporting institution, that you have to put down on paper what your program is. You have to put down your goals. You have to think through things. And so sometimes just working together as a team to take and submit to a very short timeline can help make sure that everyone in your team finds the time in order to be able to submit to something. If we all take a deep breath though, something that's going to be more typical is going to be about a 2 to 3 month deadline that the funder will release the request for proposal, and there'll be a deadline of about 2 to 3 months later. You'll work on that deadline as a team for about 1 to 2 months, preparing the details, and you will find out about the decision 1 to 3 months later. But as I said before, this is not a quick turnaround. This is us having to take and think 6 months to a year ahead of time about the money that we want to be able to support our circle. And so this is why we wanted to take and give this to you now. This allows you to start thinking over the next year, what could we possibly apply for, and what are we starting to think through as a team. And so we want to give you this proposal today. We're going to give you more resources after this, and we anticipate about a year to 6 months from now, you'll be able to successfully apply for these funders' RFPs, and we anticipate success for you as a circle. Again, to sort of share with you, to demystify this process a little bit, I want to talk more specifically about what it's like for the funders. Who are the people that are actually making these decisions? Who are the people that are giving away money? Looking through all of the handbooks about grant writing, it says that typically funding agencies receive 200 to 500 grant applications. And so what I thought about is that that's about how many applications maybe an institution receives for admissions, or maybe how many, if you have a graduate program, that might be how many graduate program applications that you receive. And so you have to think about that process of somebody has to read through this stack of applications, and just like we advise high school students, or just like we advise our undergrads, that your application needs to stick out amongst that stack, the same thing is going to be true in regards to putting together a grant application. You want your application, your idea, to stick out amongst this pile of 200 to 500. And so we're going to talk through the process today, really keeping that in mind, of what are the things that we have learned over the last 10 years of putting together grant applications that really helps Mass Circle applications stick out. What are the things that we have seen that you can develop within your program? What are records that you can keep? What are ways that you can put things together that's really going to help you make your case and make you stick out for the extraordinary program that you're putting together? And in order to do that, I do want you to just take, and we're going to do a little exercise. I want you to think about the last time you read a pile of badly written math papers. So hopefully some of you are smiling at this thought. You know, I would often take them down. We have a little breakfast cafe, and so I bribe myself with a latte and a good breakfast. and just sit down, because I'm going to just go through this whole entire pile of badly written math papers that my students put together. But as I'm going through that pile, eventually you get to that one that they did it. They addressed everything that you asked them to address when you asked them to write an essay. They talked about the things, they were insightful. It is a joy to read because they spent time editing it. And just imagine that feeling that you have, that joy. If you're out there grading as a group, maybe you pass the paper around so everyone can see and experience that joy of a really well written paper that your students are sharing deep insight into. And that's the exact same thing that you want to think about as you're going through and trying to write these grant applications. You're looking for that feeling that you had of a well-written paper that did all the things you wanted your students to do when you asked them to write the paper. So you want the people that are reading these to smile, to be happy. You want to reinforce the fact that you are going to take and contribute something great with your Math Circle program. And I'm going to make the analogy for grad school. I have found that students that take and write their first sentence talking about their joy of mathematics tend to be much more successful in applying for grad school, as opposed to starting off with the first sentence of, I always hated mathematics. Because if you're starting off with a sentence that says, I always hated mathematics, or mathematics is always so challenging, you aren't giving the people that are reading it a chance to sort of engage with you. I love mathematics, and I would hope that if you went to grad school, you would also love mathematics, and I want you to engage in that feeling. And so that's what we want to do as we're writing these papers. We want to take and have a chance to share the awesome program that you're doing and share your extraordinary deeds. So in order to do that, I give you the checklist for Math Circle grant writing. Oh goodness, there's 5 things. There's going to be more details. What I'm asking of you today is that you just sort of let me talk through these details with you. I realize that it's going to be a little bit more passive than I would like. It's going to be a lot of me talking at you, but use this time to take and think through what are the things that you're ready to write down that I'm outlining today. What are the things that you want to make sure you're ready in a month from now to be able to write down? What are the questions that you have to ask your colleagues? Think through things like that. So write down the questions that you're having for yourself about your circle as we're going through. Write down the things that you see as strengths for your circle that you're ready to take and write a grant proposal. Think through things like that. And to get us started, you can do that. You can think about, do you have the goals and basic plan for your circle? Do you have a 1-page description of your circle? Do you have a 15-minute elevator talk that describes your circle? When we were talking about this back in September, I gave you some graphical ways. This is the South Carolina High Energy Math Teacher Circle. This is their goals. This is their logo. This is something that if you have seen their publicity, if you've seen their presentations, everything consistently uses this. And they, from this, talk about how they've put their program together. This also took a lot of work within their team to put together, so I don't think that this is something that we can anticipate, but this gives us ideas. Is solving problems a goal for your particular circle? Is having fun a goal for your particular circle? There was also the San Francisco Math Circle. They had similar goals, but they wrote theirs out. And what I have seen is that they use the same verbiage in their publicity. They use the same verbiage when they are sending in a grant proposal. They use the same verbiage whenever that was throughout their website. And so they have program goals that allow them to have a consistent message about how awesome their program is. So this is something that we walked through. If you go back to that handbook that you got back in September, you can flip it back to page 19, and you can use the brainstorming and some of those other tools to think about your circle structure, your circle's goals. So that would be something you can flip back to, and you can also look at, since September, what are the things that have changed, and what are the things that you're prepared to discuss even in more depth. Because once you have these goals, the next thing that you want to be able to do is describe the initial Math Circle plans. So beyond the fact that we want to do no harm, beyond the fact that we want to take and engage in students, what other details can we describe about our Math Circle program? Well, it's going to be really important to be able to describe the participants. What are the numbers and types of participants that you plan for your circle? Where are you going to get these participants? Have you successfully recruited these participants before? So an example that I've seen is last fall we ran a math festival and successfully worked with 20 different teachers who expressed interest in promoting this Math Circle program. So we have a network of teachers who are interested that are going to send students to us. They know what the type of program that we're trying to create, and we're going to be successful in getting students from there. We're communicating that it's not just a great idea, but that we have the ability to be able to reach out to these participants. So we want to take and communicate that we want to work with middle school students, that we want to work with high school students, that we want to work with teachers, that we want to work with parents. Who are the people that you plan to get, and where are you going to get them? You also want to be able to describe what the participants' math experience is going to be like. How often are you going to meet? What type of math content are you going to do? Like, does people in your department have experience in presenting this type of math content? Have you done math festivals before and you're going to build off of that experience? Where is the math content going to come from? And is there going to be any other unique features beyond the regular meetings? Are you planning to have a parent festival? Are you going to take and have everyone show up and go to career day on your campus? Be able to take and describe through a lot of the details of the logistics of the mathematical experience that your participants are going to have. Now, one of the things that I love about putting together a grant proposal, I was actually working on this yesterday for myself and my Math Circle here in Ellensburg. And thinking through a lot of these details is going to save me a lot of work for next year. I had to put down and think through the calendar. I had to take and think through when I'm going to take and do the trainings for my undergrads. I'm going to think through the topics that we're going to present. And now I have all of those decisions ready. So even if I don't get the grant, I still, just through the process of applying for the grant, have been able to do a lot of work that's going to benefit my circle in the long run. So again, we've talked about the participants, we've talked about the participants' math experience, and lastly, we're going to talk about logistical details. Have you created a relationship with the people, and have they approved your location? So I do my circle here in Ellensburg at a local elementary school. So I talked about the fact that this is a school that we've worked with over the last year and a half. The principal is excited to have us there, and we have plans for growing the program in the future. And we're able to talk about the fact that this is a unique relationship in regards to my Math Circle being here in Ellensburg is the only sort of math outreach program that we have for 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th graders. So it's a unique opportunity, and I'm able to share those logistical details. And this, together with my goals, is really going to take and put together a real clear idea to somebody else, hopefully, about what my program is going to be like. Because I want to be able to share all of these details with somebody in order to be able to see that the goals, the program that I'm putting together, align with the funding opportunities that these goals and that this program is going to create. Now, I did want to take this opportunity for those of you that are starting new circles that are involved in novice circles. It can be a little bit scary to think about, like, these are circles that scary is the wrong word. It can be intimidating to get all of the details about the circles because maybe we haven't done a lot with the elementary school, and so we are just trying to guess what type of students that we're working with. And this is where I want to share one pro tip that I've learned. This is going to be the number one pro tip for this presentation today. And that is with No Child Left Behind and a lot of the other federal initiatives, every single school district now is required to take and create an online school report card. So I literally typed in Ellensburg school report card, and this is what I was able to navigate to. So this is for the Ellensburg School District, and it tells you what the overall outlook looks like for my particular school district. I'll give you a second to just look at this. So if I am a funder that's really interested in supporting mathematical education and enrichment, I'm going to be very intrigued by the fact that right now only 53% of 6th graders are passing mathematics, the annual mathematics exams, that only 56% of 7th graders are passing the annual mathematics exams. I'm going to be interested in the fact that 39% of the students in the Ellensburg School District are on free and reduced priced meals. This means that they come from low socioeconomic backgrounds. And these are often causes that a lot of the funders that are out there are going to be very interested in supporting. They are interested in supporting students being able to have more mathematically enriched activities, especially if they have low mathematics test scores. They're going to be interested in taking and supporting students that are underserved, and definitely students from low socioeconomic. We can tie that into being an underserved population. And so these are going to give me numbers that I'm not just making up, but that I can actually point to that show what the breakup is of my particular school. You can even click through and see the details for a specific school. So if you're running your math circle at a specific school, you don't need to take and visually guess the race and ethnicity of your students or the gender of the students that you're working with. You can actually take and get that data from the report card that's available online. So this is a good resource if you're looking to take and be able to apply to a very specific set of goals. You can describe your participants perhaps in more detail than you would be able to just guess based on your experience working with the school. You'd have actually the data to be able to back up your guess. So that's our number one pro tip that we're going to share today. So let's keep going. Let's thinking about, now that you have the goals and basic plan for your circle, you have one page, you now have enough details to be able to go to your supporting institution and talk to them about the program that you want to run. You need to take and be able to show that you've put enough detail into it, that you have enough thought into it, that your supporting institution can really understand and be able to take and support you in the process of fundraising. So once you've presented this to your supporting institution, what you're probably going to do is you're either going to go to the grants office, perhaps, or the foundationals office. Perhaps you're going to talk to both offices. You're going to work together with them to take and find funding opportunities that align with your goals. And it's really important that you work together with them. A lot of institutions, especially for big funders, are only going to want to take and submit one application to big funders. And so your team is going to provide them the opportunity, but you need to make sure that this aligns well with what your institution is planning long-term in terms of fundraising with different institutions. So your team is going to provide the outline of the circle, the goals, the plans, the basic participants, and your institution is going to provide grant writing expertise. They're going to provide personal contacts with funders. They're going to give potential partners, perhaps there's other groups on campus that are doing similar things, and by putting your projects together, it's going to be more fundable. But really, you need to work with your institution. I'm going to say this over and over again, because they have the knowledge of the big picture of the institution's fundraising plans. You don't want to compete with others at your institution for the same grant. And for example, I'm helping Boise Math Teachers Circle right now fundraise, and their institution was working to take and get a local foundation to fund a whole entire building and build out a new major. And so they didn't want the Teacher Circle approaching for a $5,000 grant when they're currently working on a $5 million grant. And so it's really important that you work with your institution on this. And this will give you enough detail today to be able to give the basic outline and to be able to approach them, and they'll be able to provide even more expertise to be able to support you going forward. And through this, through your institution, you're going to be able to find a lot of resources to take and find funding opportunities. And there is a lot of different funding options out there. So there's federal grants. There's also a lot of foundational websites where foundations, so these are smaller groups of people that have decided that they're going to give away parts of their money to support a specific cause, they are going to be able to, they oftentimes register that particular grant opportunity on one of these websites. Some of these are going to be free to be able to search. Others are going to have a cost with it, and that's going to be the other advantage of working with your particular institution to take in, because oftentimes they will have an institutional license, so it won't cost you anything to be able to search through some of these. Anne McCarthy had asked what types of organizations are most likely to fund Mass Circles, and Sarah Bryant had sent a similar question. And I would say that all of these, at all of these levels, have actually funded our circles. So there's been city grants, there's been school district grants, there's been county grants, state grants, regional grants, national initiatives. We are currently working as an organization to create a comprehensive study of all the Mass Circles across the country. And once we've done that, we'll better be able to address specifically how the different circles are being funded. But for right now, we know individually different people that have been successful at getting funding from all of these different sources. The key thing is just to check in with your institution and to see who in your regional area is excited about supporting STEM outreach. And one of the things that's very exciting about mathematics is that there's been a lot of sort of science and robots and sort of science part of the STEM outreach, but there isn't as much availability of good mathematical outreach. And so we really serve a need, and by taking and building on that within your institution, it can really be very fundable. And so I think that any of these would be good options going forward. And it's something that we also, either your mentors could help us, or the national organization could also help finding specific ones. Once you've signed up for some of these resources, they're actually going to start sending you emails. And from these emails, it's going to become very clear why it's really important to know what your specific goals are. So if your funding institution received grants like this, these are all grants they're going to take and support educational-based initiatives. But what you'll see is that a lot of these aren't actually really relevant for Mass Circles. If we look at the bottom one, Native Plants Education Project might not be something that right away you could see having a direct connection. It's also possible, though, that that might be something that you actually have an interest in and could partner with other people on your campus to be able to support as an initiative. But it's important that your funders who are looking through lots and lots of these short summaries of RFPs, that your institution is able to see what you would match up with and be able to support you through that process. And also they might send you regular emails. So this is an email that I got. Instead of the institution sorting this through which ones would be optional, they would just send us these lists and then ask us to look for things that best fit. So knowing what my goals were really helped me be able to sort through these emails more quickly and find things that would actually support my Mass Circle programs. And this leads up to the question of, do Mass Circles stand on their own, or is it better to partner with other activities? And your particular institution is going to know what's going to work best for this. What we have found is that sometimes Mass Circles can be almost too small, that your budget isn't big enough for some of the grants that maybe are in your local area. But by partnering with another outreach program or another Mass Circle, perhaps you'd be much more competitive because your budget would be big enough that you would be a better project to fund. And so that's something that, again, by working with your institution, you've heard it over and over again, it's going to be my motto for the day, work with your institution. But you can best work with, find out. And also we're very interested in sort of creating these regional funding models for Mass Circles. This is something that some of the circles have done. In some states, they've made different circles that come together once a year. And so there's one big grant that four different circles end up splitting that support all of their local activities, and then also allow them to come together once a year and share a professional community. So that might be another idea. So at this point, hopefully you have a one-page outline of your goals. You know the basic plan for your circle. and you found a funding opportunity that is aligned with the goals. It basically says we want to support math outreach for elementary and middle school students, and give us a grant application for that. And so this is where you're going to actually start preparing the draft of the grant. And that is going to be a little bit of an involved process. So again, what I want you to do is sort of sit back. I'm going to walk through the different steps. And then after this week, probably early next week, I will be sending out the summary of all of these things so that you have a chance to sort of review them and think through them for yourselves, as well as have access to some sample grants. But as you're drafting the grant, the first thing is to think about the grant outline. And what you want to do as you're putting together the grant outline is think about the following 4 points. First, you're going to lay out the significant gap, lack, or need that your program is addressing. So in no more than about 1 paragraph, you want to talk about what is the history of the education, mathematics education in your community for your type of participants. Are these high school students that are really talented, that have been underserved because there isn't any accelerated programs? Are these middle school students that have been underserved because they are failing algebra over and over again, and they need a new approach to be able to be successful in problem solving? Are these teachers that are looking for professional opportunities to re-engage with how amazing mathematics is? What is the history of your particular community or participants? And this is where that pro tip about statistics about your local participants' abilities to do mathematics is going to be really helpful. Going back and finding that report card. And also, this is a good time to just throw in the words Common Core. This means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but I would say that there's been a consistent message that the Common Core mathematics has changed the national focus to being a need for more mathematical problem solving in the classroom. So any programs that reinforce problem solving really are meeting a timely need. This is definitely something that a lot of foundations, a lot of groups are interested in funding. So you're basically saying, like, there's a need within my community to take and have this types of education supported. You then are going to talk about how math circles are the solution to that support. Nationally, math circles have been very successful in addressing all of those needs. They've been very successful at supporting talented youth. They've been very supportive in supporting under-enriched youth. We have the numbers. If you want to take and have access to that recorded, there's information. NAMC has really good language about how math circles have supported students. The American Institute of Mathematics has really good language about how math teacher circles have supported the mathematical problem solving for teachers. And it's also, I think, a really great time, if you're writing about this, to reach out and find circles that have similar communities and see what their success has been like. So if you're in an urban community that is trying to take and reach out to underserved youth, talking to San Francisco or Irvine or Houston, those would be really good places to find out what's been successful about their programs and to point to that success as you're writing your grant application. If you're working on creating a circle for rural elementary students, then talking to me about what's been successful is going to be something that you can reinforce and refer to within your grant. So we've talked about the need, we've talked about how math circles are a solution to that need, and then we're going to talk about how we're going to take and actually implement. We're going to show that what our team has done until now and demonstrate that we are going to be able to successfully implement this plan. Now, doing that is going to look different for novice circles versus experienced circles. For novice circles, you need to show that you have data for your planned program, like what are the types of participants. You need to take and show that you have interactions with the community, that you're ready to take and reach out within this community and be able to do this type of work. But as your circle keeps going and you move from being a novice circle to an experienced circle, you're going to need to take and change your funding approach. You're going to need to be able to show that you have data for your existing program. You're going to need to find some way to measure the success of your existing program. And you're going to need to take and think about, is there ways that you can expand your program, grow your program, to take and continue to challenge your program to succeed even further. I bring that up today because even though a lot of the people on this phone call have novice circles, knowing that one day you might want to fundraise as an experienced circle, these are things that you want to look at and make sure that you have the data, that you have the records to be able to apply for one day. So it's important to take attendance records. It's important to take and keep track of what schools did your students come from. It's important to take and think about how long have different people been participating in your program, finding ways to measure success. And these are the things that you're going to communicate in your grant, either where your plan is to be able to be successful or how you've been successful already. And this is your chance to share how amazing your work is. And talk about at the end why you should be funded. You need to really take and talk about how the fact that your team, this program, is uniquely set up to be funded. This is something that's going to make the foundation proud to have supported. This is something that's going to take and be just the key aspect. It's going to represent in total what the foundation was hoping to take and fund in the first place. So we're bringing together, we're talking about the need, we're talking about how math circles are a solution to the need, how we are successfully able to take and implement math circle programs, and just reinforcing throughout the fact that we are a unique project that should be funded. That we are an activity more worthy than others who have applied. We are competing right now against the 500 other applications that are on that table. And we want to make sure that our circle stands out, that the people are smiling and proud to be behind, be the name that is listed as a supporter for our particular circle. That gets us just through the grant application. We then need to think there's going to be a little bit more involved. After we've taken and done the application, we have the opportunity to create a budget. We need to think about how we're going to spend this money that we're fundraising for. This can be a little bit difficult if it's so hypothetical, if everything that we've been doing up until this point has been on a shoestring and gum. So what we have put together, and this is all accessible through the handbook, is these is a summary of budgets from circles across the country. So up on top, we have math student circles. Down on bottom, we have math teacher circles, and you can see how different circles spent their budgets. We can also see that they range from $1,000 up to $11,000, and we can figure out what is the area that we're trying to focus on and see how they spent that particular set of money. As I said, this is available online, as is, you can take and go to page 26 of the handbook, and there is a brainstorming tool that will help you through thinking through what aspects you want to focus on for Math Circle funding. What are the things that you need to spend money on to reinforce your goals? Is it important for you as a director to take and receive funding? Because is that going to allow you to be dedicated to the Math Circle project in a way that is going to ensure success? Do you need to have food in order to get high school students to your program at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday? What are the aspects of this budget and how do they tie into your overall program goals? So we're going to think through that. So we want to make sure that our budget reinforces what the goals are that we have in our grant application. And this is why we want to spend time on it. We want to take and make sure that we're giving ourselves enough time to put together a consistent message, to talk about how unique we are, and also to give ourselves enough time to edit. One of the quickest ways to make sure that you don't get funded is by not double checking the mechanics, by having the wrong text size, by sending in too many pages, by not sending in the grants by the deadline. And this one happens more often. You know, this is just so horrible. You think that the grant was due at midnight in your time zone, but it was actually due at midnight in Germany. That's just tragic because you lose the opportunities to take and apply just by missing by an hour. And so it's very important that you work as a team to double check the mechanics, but also to take and work on creating the most succinct version of the grant applications that's most eye-catching. So I'm going to walk you through three sentences that I was working with the Boise Math Teacher Circle to sort of think about how we wanted to start our first sentence, what we wanted to take and set off the grant and sort of say, this is who we are. So here we go, sentence number 1. Boise Math Teacher Circle is a solution to engaging local mathematics teachers and sharing engaging mathematics in their classroom. Okay, sentence number 1. Sentence number 2. Mathematical problem solving is the key that makes mathematics relevant to the rest of the world. Okay. Number 3. Boise teachers need help. The latest set of assessments indicates 50% of Boise School District students are achieving basic or below on their mathematics assessment. Boise Math Teacher Circle is a solution. Now, if we put all 3 of those together, none of them are perfect, and all 3 of them are going to head in slightly different directions. Now, for me, sentence number 1 drives me a little bit crazy because we used engaging twice. Sentence number 2 sounds really awesome for people that already are bought into the fact that mathematics is awesome and that mathematics is relevant, but it might not be the best way to start off with people that don't have warm and fuzzy feelings about mathematics. And sentence number 3 definitely just starts off right away indicating a need, but if this is the direction that we're gonna go, then we still need to edit it a little bit more because I messed up on the tense and we have assessment twice. So none of these are gonna be perfect, and this is why we wanna make sure that we give ourselves enough time in editing that we can really tighten up the content. And that leads me to the next part of the process. It's important to take and build into your timeline for applying to grants to have all the key players give feedback. So anyone that's going to be involved in the project should make sure that they feel okay with the grant that you're putting together, the plan that you're putting together. But this is also something that we want to really support. So we have actually put together some sample materials, discussions about different Math Circle models, discussions about the National Math Circle picture, and you are free to use this language in your grants so long as after you submit your grant, you share it with us. I'm going to just click on some of those. So if we check this out, this is sample descriptions that we can use from different math student circles. It talks about the history and growth of math circles in the United States, showing that we were at less than 30 programs back in 2006. So over the last 10 years, we're up to more than 180 programs. And that shows very good sustainable growth across the national picture. We also are able to take and talk about the fact that we have this national program, and it talks about sample activities. So these are activities that we have found that we've shared in different grant applications that are especially helpful for people that may not have a lot of informal mathematics training, and they're able to take and connect with our picture of what it's like to be in a Math Circle session. Even better is if you're able to take and share pictures, and so we want to start gathering pictures to be able to share with people. Next, we have sample Math Circle models. So these, there's an even longer list of this within your Math Circle map handbook, right? All of the people that were mentors were able to take and share a description of the Math Circle model. And so that would be a good sort of place to be able to say, we're going to take and create a program similar to what Dr. Wiegers has made over in Washington. And these are the things that have been successful about her program. And as I said, I think it works out even better when you can show those smiling, awesome kids. So these are resources that we're preparing for you. We are also prepared to support you by taking and if you give us 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks notice, we are able to take and read through your draft grant application and give you some feedback for you as a team, like ways that you could tighten up the verbiage or other ways that you could reinforce the message that you're trying to put together. So we're trying to take and provide support for Math Circles out there, and I hope to have all of those materials put together. We've been using the webinars as a way to take and start putting those materials together, and I want to address the questions that have come up and make sure that those are all addressed in the materials before we share them with you. But I think that that's going to be a good place to get you started. So we're just asking that if you use any of those materials, send us a copy of what you submit and let us know how it goes. As we said before, you're going to have about maybe 3 to 6 months or even just a month after you submit as you wait for the good news. And we would love to hear when you do get that good news, and we want to share in your success. So because what we envision as more and more Math Circles are able to take and successfully fundraise, we envision that we can take and start looking at much larger funders for Math Circles. So Lance had asked the question of how can Math Circles find a relatively steady income? And we have found the most success in this when Math Circles are partnered with foundations that want the Math Circle as their example outreach project for the whole entire foundation. And that's done by building up the data about successful Math Circles. That's done by developing relationships with funders that want to take and be more involved in math outreach. And we are trying to do as much as we can of that nationally. And you continuing to share your success with us is something that will really help us continue to be successful on that. So as you wait for the good news, as we put together this big picture, as I said, I will share these materials with you hopefully in the next, I'm going to go week and a half. And hopefully this has been useful. But I ask, I'm going to go back to, is there any further questions that people, is there any questions that people have for us here this morning? I got a question. I'm looking back through the back feed. So from James, so what about local funders? And I have definitely had a lot of success in that in regards to local funders, especially organizations that you could every once in a while have them come to your organization and possibly present. So we've had partnerships with, when we were in San Francisco, we partnered with the Moody's Foundation. And when we had math festivals, 2 or 3 of their engineers would come over to the math festival, and it was a chance for them to have a positive experience and also a chance for them to do outreach at the place that their foundation was supporting. So trying to take and do that is a good way to take and local funders are very excited about supporting people that they can point to within their community and say, we helped them. So any other questions? Okay. As I said, this was a lot of information, especially if you haven't been involved in the grant writing process before, but hopefully this is going to take and give you an overview of the full picture of grant writing. And when you are able to find a funder that best aligns with you, you'll be able to go back through this material and it will help you take and create a structured start to your Math Circle grant application. I look forward to being able to share the resources with all of you, and I'm happy to stay on in case anyone wants to talk with me privately, but other than that, I thank you all for spending this hour with me today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.